Magic. That's the word you hear over and over again from the people who call Floyd, Virginia home. It's something you feel as soon as you take one step in this place. A thread that runs through every corner, pulling together a culture that's quite special and unlike what I've seen in much of Appalachia. Floyd is rich, not in the ways most people think of wealth, but in the stuff that really matters. Clay, lumber, fresh mountain water, all of it springing from the land and flowing out into the world. There's this harmony here between the land, the farmers who work it, the businesses that thrive on it, and the artisans who take what's around them and show us the beauty in it. Show us the beauty in ourselves. In a world that constantly pressures us to fall in line, to conform, Floyd does the exact opposite. It's the magic of the mountains, the art, the people. Floyd is a place that says, screw that, be who you are. And there's real power in that. Sometimes just being yourself is the most radical thing you can do. I've heard it said, where we are affects who we are. Makes sense, right? I've always believed you can't really understand yourself until you understand where you come from. Hi, I'm Josh, and I'm hosting this series with PBS Appalachia to explore the places people still call home, their hometowns, and to uncover the stories that make them unique. Hometowns is about exploring the communities that give America its character. This season, we're going off the beaten path on a journey from Virginia to Wyoming. Now don't get me wrong, many of these places have their flaws, warts and all. But if that's all you focus on, you're missing the bigger picture, the raw, untamed beauty of the land and the depth and complexity of its culture. These are the things that speak to the heart of understanding what it really means to be an American. It's a journey worth taking. Trust me. It was the 1960s. Man, what a time to be alive. You had this undeniable cultural revolution sweeping the world. Music, art, politics, everything felt like it was exploding, pushing boundaries, questioning everything that came before. The Beatles were in full swing, Hendrix was setting guitars on fire, and Woodstock was more than a concert, it was a declaration. Kids from every corner of the world were shedding the conformity of their parents' generation, rejecting the status quo, and embracing this idea of freedom. Freedom of expression, of lifestyle, of thought. This was a time when people marched in the streets, civil rights, women's liberation, anti-Vietnam War protest. The system was being challenged at every level. It was chaos, and it was beautiful. People could feel the power shifting, just a little, but enough to make you believe that maybe, just maybe, the world was going to change for the better. But here's the thing. Behind all that revolution, behind the counterculture and the liberation, there was a constant gnawing tension. The Cold War. You can't talk about the 1960s without talking about that. People forget how heavy it was to live with the threat of nuclear annihilation hanging over your head. One minute, you are tuning into the Ed Sullivan Show. The next, you are watching news about the Cuban Missile Crisis, wondering if the world's about to end. It was surreal. There was this insane contradiction. On one side, the explosion of color, creativity, and hope. On the other, the grim reality that two superpowers, the US and the Soviet Union, were locked in a nuclear arms race. Every day was a delicate balance between living free and knowing it could all be over in the blink of an eye. The 1960s were wild and terrifying. A decade of possibility and fear, and somehow both coexisted. And that, more than anything, defined the era. And it was in this looming shadow of nuclear war that I'm told an article was written about Floyd, Virginia, that in the event of nuclear war, it was the place to relocate. Why? Because the source of its water was within itself. The water originates here and flows out of the county because of its position on the Eastern Continental Divide. And this was the calling card for Back to the Landers and intentional communities. Jane Avery is one such person. Drawn to Floyd, she came here with a different vision, along with a few like-minded folks who built something unique, an intentional community, a place where they didn't just live, but worked together, raised families together, and shared everything, from their skills to their resources. It's a whole different way of living, one that's all about connection and collaboration. In a world that's so often about going it alone, they chose something else.
There was something about this place, that connection of all of us was always kind of amazing to us, because we hadn't experienced that in other places we'd lived. And yet we were all drawn here and then resonated on those levels. Yeah. So that is what, I guess I'd put it, magically.